Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and I'm going to talk about, I think, the number one culture opportunity that every single company has. Now, I'm going to reframe that. The number one culture creation opportunity, and it's conflict. It sounds crazy, right? And in probably the last 3, 4 weeks, I've been traveling. I'm going to be traveling over the next month and going to different client sites. And one of the things that I always hear is phrases such as, well, they're sheepish or they're a little bit hesitant with conflict. They struggle with, tough conversations. Tough conversations, conflict is the opportunity that cultures have. Here's why. Systemically at the foundation, if we have people who are really uncomfortable, they probably won't have the conversation. Yet if they need to get it off their chest, they might go tell 3 other people who tell 4 people. Now there's 12 versions, and it gets back to the source and wait a minute, that's not what I meant. And what happens is when we don't go to the source because we are insecure, we don't know how to have the conversation, whatever the reason might be, what happens is this issue becomes this huge problem. It happens all the time. And about 2 weeks ago, I was a manufacturing firm, and I had somebody who was not going to the source and brought it up in the meeting. As an outsider, which is not my place, by the way, I stopped the meeting and I looked at this gentleman. I said, I have to ask you, have you talked to this person? He said, no, but I said, stop. I'm going to give you the best advice I can right now. Do not continue this conversation. Go to that person. I'd be happy to role play and practice that conversation you need to have. But if you have it here, it's going to take on a life form. No disrespect to anybody in this room. And people in the room were nodding, supporting me. He goes, well, no, I just think it's really good, the group. And he just kept going. And what he was really doing was rallying support. And he was rallying support for an issue that I actually think he was right on. And sure enough, day later, the gentleman he was talking about calls me. And he says, what happened in the meeting? I said, look, I'm not gonna dance around with this. Do you have a direct question? I don't want to play this game. And I came off really abrupt and I said, I know what you're alluding to. I'd rather have you say it. And he repeats what he had heard was said in terms of the subject. And he was right. And it got to him and he was furious. He was right. So he brought the person in and I coached him and coached the person who brought in the person and said, help me understand why you brought up in a meeting that I did not attend. He said, well, I just felt, and let me just stop right there, everybody. See, our emotions, our feelings give us permission to deal with things. It's not always logical. It's not always rational. And I'm going to give you some context to that. I've coached volleyball for 32 years. I haven't coached the last 2 years. It's been hard because it's in me. And I remember telling my guys when I started the varsity program at Cedarburg High School, I said, you're going to get feedback from a teammate once a week. I want you to ask for 2 things you do well and 1 area where you can improve. When you hear that 1 area you can improve, smile and say thank you. Kid raises his hand and goes, what if I hear something I don't like? I go, you're always going to hear things you don't like. How you react to it, guys, defines you. Do not let your emotions push people away. You fold your arms and say, give me an example. Well, no, see what I meant to do at that point. What you're doing is saying, get away from me. So do not complain about inclusiveness or the lack thereof. We are a team. We are a collection of different personalities, goals, aspirations, skill sets, lack of skill sets. We have to mesh. And the only way you mesh is a foundation of trust. See, we throw that term around like crazy. It drives me insane. Well, you got to have trust in the workplace. I always ask, so how do you facilitate trust? Number 1, you have someone's back. You call them into the office for the good stuff. Number 2, you always go to the source. Conflict is tough. Now, how do we create that? How do we do that? There are 2 main things that you need to do. And that is, number 1, leaders need to know how to coach and employees need to be coachable. The combination of I know how to coach and I'm pretty coachable and approachable. I accept feedback. I even seek it. We even have a program called Eat Feedback where we teach people 21 actions they need to take to cultivate a better relationship with feedback. Can you imagine if 90% of employees in the workplace today went out and sought feedback, smiled when they got it, even the things they didn't agree with or like? and say thank you and walked away, what would happen to our leaders? They'd become more comfortable. The culture would become tighter. I see it every place I go. They don't go to the source. They're frustrated. They will talk about somebody who's not in the room. And what happens is it takes on the life form. I'm telling you, everybody, it does, no matter what. I'll give you another example. I was at a company, gosh, this is like 15, 20 years ago. We were in a meeting and someone had presented, now the CEO. I won't mention the company's name because you'll know it's him. And he knew of this incident. And he walked out and he was talking about some new mandates with the company and, direction and stuff. I don't even remember what the topic was about. And he walked away and he said that he thought the meeting went really well. And as I was walking out, I was walking back through a couple buildings and going back to a place they were kind enough to give me a place to work. And I could hear this manager go, "Oh, I just hate where we're going. I just disagree with the direction." And I'm walking behind him. He's saying this in the hallway by cubicles within earshot of employees. And so I walked right next to him and walked right into his office with him. I go, "Jeff, we just had the meeting. He asked if there's any concerns." "Well, he won't listen to me." I go, "Wait a minute. Let's say he doesn't listen to you and he cuts you off. That's your reality. I'm not saying it's right or fair, but you just sat there with another leader, complained about the head person. You didn't bring it up in the meeting. Your issue has left the building." Because I'm him, I'm saying, "Why didn't you say it to me directly?" Doesn't mean he's going to receive it well. And I think what we do is we situationally, emotionally give ourselves permission to handle things on our own platform that gets us in trouble. And we don't talk about it enough. If you do not go to the source, there's going to be a challenge. I'm telling you right now, even if you go and you bring up something to a fellow employee and if another employee did something wrong to you and you felt a certain way and you're 100%, 1,000% correct, what's going to happen is if that person tells another person and it gets to the person that you're upset with, you've got no foundation. It's gone. Trust is eradicated. We don't talk about it enough. See, the greatest opportunity cultures have is conflict. See, if we actually teach people what to do and what to say, what will ultimately happen is we'll handle conflict better. So where does that start? Number one, you have to learn how to seek and accept feedback. See, I think one of the greatest things that we need to do is something called RIRE. And I don't think I have a diagram here. Let me check here for a second. But RIRE for me is one of the greatest things that we teach. And I don't think I do, and I apologize. I should have set this up beforehand. But RIRE stands for react, interpret, articulate, reflect. We rarely get to reflection. And so when we react and I hear something I don't like, I get emotional. I'm upset. I interpret, I put my narrative on it. My boss attacked me. I articulate. Two coworkers say, "What'd the boss say?" "Oh, I don't know, but he's such a jerk and he attacked me." Those 2-3 people now have an impression of that boss. They weren't in the room. And they might go tell 3 other people, "I don't know if you want to work in this division. Bob, the boss, is kind of a jerk." And then we never get to reflection. So the first R is reacted. Last R is reflection. You reverse them. You start with reflection. So when we teach EAT feedback, which stands for embrace, ask, and tell, you first embrace it and say, "Well, first of all, thanks for the feedback. Let me ask you, what could I do to specifically improve?" And then you address the area that was brought up to you. You listen to it. And then you tell that person what you're going to do with their feedback, which creates greater accountability and ownership. Yet more importantly, what it also breeds, if I can be so bold, is it breeds this thing called coaching and coachability. If we have people who are more coachable and approachable, it's easier for leaders. If leaders really understand the craft of coaching, not just in the moment, but continuous coaching, calendar-based coaching, scheduling time with his or her employees, things will improve. And if they leverage people's strengths, and I challenge you for a 3-to-1 ratio, give feedback that is strength-based 3 times to 1 time that is opportunistic or constructive. I'm telling you, you will notice a difference in 30 days. But we are so fixated on observing and triggered by what we need to fix and correct. And we give that feedback right away. No, that's not the right way to do it. You are eroding motivation, emotional attachment to your leadership. And so where does the opportunity reside? It's conflict. Seeking feedback lessens conflict. Smiling and saying thank you lessens conflict. The ability to leverage people's strengths will open up the doors where they know deep down they have opportunities to improve, will lessen conflict. If you have a rule, and I'm being really serious right now, I think companies, I know HR departments, the hair on the back of their necks are going to go up with what I'm about to say. I think it's grounds for termination not going to the source. So if I have an issue with the president of my company and I bring it up in a meeting, and I don't address it with that person, I think that's grounds for termination. And, when people talk about this as this fleeting thing, well, trust is broken and never recovered. So let me bring up the Coldplay concert. Anybody think that guy's wife is going to say, nah, I trust him now? That was the most disrespectful thing anyone could possibly do. Be on a concert with your arms around another woman. And by the way, that woman's going to say, yeah, I really trust him now. He's turned the corner. That could take her years. It'll always be there. That never gets erased. Now, that might be deemed theatrical, over the top. Oh, come on, Tim. It's not like that. No, it's not. But I have people, if they don't come to me and they bring it up to somebody else, for me, I can't transfer my belief system, my philosophy, my ideology to you. But my contention is people will be in meetings and say, I don't know if I can trust that guy. And I'll always ask, how come? Well, a couple months ago or 2 years ago, and it'll stick with people. We have to go to the source. And again, I think the greatest thing we can do is teach our leaders and practice the craft of coaching. Number 2, the foundation of companies, 70 to 80% are individual contributors. Teach them approachability and coachability. So let me just pull something up here for you, if you wouldn't mind. And I think it really goes back to something that we need to do. And I want to throw this up here, and I hope, if you scan this QR code, and let me just get rid of this text real quick. Scan this QR code. And the reason being is, and let me see if I can make it bigger. Oh, there we go. Well, I can't make it bigger. So what you can do, maybe I can. And so when you scan this QR code, we have something that we call leadership coaching packs, where we work with leaders and teach them how to coach. We even craft coaching plans for the leader based on what he or she sees in their employees. Here's the best part. We also then have a 12-month program starting with Eat Feedback, and then a monthly coachability series lesson that has an AI component where the learner, the leader's employees, can interact and ask questions such as, how do I approach my boss when I'm upset? Or how do I seek feedback when I'm feeling negative, or whatever it might be? And we have 12 topics from EQ to self-awareness, self-regulation, being a great teammate, etc. And the reason I share this with you is I think it really makes, sorry about that. I'm trying to make the image bigger. And so what you can do is scan this QR code. We'll send you an overview and a sample of what that looks like. And I think it'll really serve you well. So I'm going to keep that QR code up there. But again, I go back to the number one opportunity we have is conflict. Really understanding where somebody else is coming from. I often use this analogy. Have a Democrat and a Republican go out for a calm lunch. Share each other your issues, but stay calm. It's tough because we emotionally get charged. Ryer, we react, we interpret, we articulate. So when we hear something we don't like, what do? We go into the stratosphere mentally of, oh my gosh, I don't feel good. Interpretation. He's doing this. I'm going to create a narrative so I feel better about it. I'm going to tell 3 other people. Yeah. And when people go home and they tell their spouses, my boss was really being a jerk today. Does anyone in their right mind think the spouse is going to say, honey, I've met your boss. She seems like a nice lady. I think it's you. What do they typically do? Oh, wow. Sorry, honey. I feel so bad you went through that, which validates their feelings. Feeling validation does not equal accuracy. Conflict is tough. So let me leave you with one more thing that we teach leaders: permission plus the sword. John, would you mind if I shared a couple perspectives where we can work more effectively together? That's permission. And here comes the sword. And the last thing I want to do is assume where you're coming from, because I think that would be incredibly unfair to you. I'd love to hear from you where you see opportunities for us to collaborate. That's a peer-to-peer conversation. Get your employees learning conversations. Get them learning different things that they can do to have tough conversations. Make it a part of the onboarding. Make them practice it for the first 12 to 24 months of their employment. It seems crazy, right? I'm telling you right now, it will make all the difference in the workplace culture. You know, our HR leaders out there, I talk to a lot of them at our client sites, and I swear they should probably wear an official's jersey with stripes, because they're constantly, well, maybe, okay, and the leader doesn't have the conversation, or they don't have it well, they haven't leveraged strengths, and that flows downstream right into the principal or the HR person's office and says, you know, Tim's not performing. I think we need to put him on a PIP. But the HR leader, truly, to defend he or she, does not have a proper representation of reality, because emotions are involved. When you practice conflict, when you practice feedback, when you practice giving it, and you create greater coaching and coachability, the workplace culture improves dramatically. Number two, if you practice conflict and you have a rule, only go to the source. Don't talk about another employee. When they're not there, everything will improve. So scan this QR code. We'll be happy to get you some information on our leadership coaching packs, which directly deals with this issue. And we work with leaders on how to coach. We create coaching plans specific to their expectations and the goals of their employee, if they so choose. And we put employees through a program that teaches them approachability and coachability. And they fill out a monthly assessment. Here's the best part. The monthly assessment goes right to the leader, further expanding their ability from a visibility standpoint of what to coach to. So I hope this has served you well. I am passionate about this because I see it all the time. And I want to give you kind of a summation here. I have a real good friend in Cedarburg who was at a cookout at a cocktail party, and someone was talking about the volleyball coach. And my friend Rob said, well, you know, hey, I got to stop you here. You know, he's a friend of mine. And he goes, oh, that guy just is he's so brash, talking about me. And my friend Rob goes, oh, what happened? I really want you to hear this, because this is the substance of where conflict goes south. Now, I could have been brash. I could have not handled something correctly. The parent never said it to me. The parent came to me to the gym during practice hours and wanted to talk to me. So my friend inquisitively and skillfully said, well, how did this conversation come about? And the friend goes, well, I don't really remember, but I just know I asked him about my kid's playing time, and he was really direct, and I just felt like he was really insensitive. My friend goes, well, wait, let's back up. Where did this conversation take place? He goes, I think it was in the field house. He goes, when? So this guy knew what my friend was getting at and finally came clean and said, well, I came up during practice. My friend goes, well, my son played for Tim. I believe he has a rule, no parent conversations during practice, right? He said, yeah, but he goes, no, but that's one of his rules. He said, right. He said, so you were interrupting practice to talk about your kid. He said, so you came to him. He didn't come to you. He said, well, no. He said, well, what did you ask him? He said, well, I asked him why my kid wasn't playing. He said, well, what did Tim say? He said, well, he just wasn't going to crack the starting lineup. His skill set wasn't there. And my friend goes, did he say anything else? Because my friend knows my coaching style. And he said, no, I can't remember anything. And he goes, he didn't say anything positive about your kid? He goes, well, yeah, he gave the proverbial, he loves my kid. So my friend goes, so you interrupted practice. You went to him. You asked him a question. What did you want to hear that you didn't hear? Well, I don't know. I just really felt defensive the way he was talking about my kid. And my friend goes, but you asked the questions. He said, yeah. And he goes, do you think Tim lied to you? Whether you agree with Tim is a different subject. He said, no. And he goes, how would you have liked him to handle it? He said, well, he could have been more sensitive. He said, do you think parents, if Tim had said something like, oh, he's really getting better, would have understood that if he didn't play the next week? Or would they have assumed, well, my kid's playing next week. The coach says he's getting pretty good. Guy goes, yeah, you're probably right. I was just really upset. And by the way, great parent, but in the moment was emotional. Conflict is the number one opportunity our cultures have today. We got AI, we got all this stuff going on. At the foundation of when there's a lack of execution is typically conflict. Put your comments in, scan this QR code, reach out to us. My email is tim@progresscoachingleader.com. Send me your feedback. I hope you enjoy these sessions. Thanks, everybody.